Saturn is secretly the god of the elite. In the astrological calendar, Capricorn, the sea goat, which is ruled by Saturn, covers from 270 degrees to 330 degrees, 27-33. The planet Saturn sits at an axis tilt of 26.73 degrees, which is rounded up astronomically to 27 degrees. In Freemasonry, the number 33, 3 superscript 3 equals 27, is important, to say the least. So again we see the 3 by 3 by 3, and the 27. Freemasons are, most essentially, a Saturn-worshipping cult. The modern Hebrew word for Saturn, Shabtai, emerges from the same root as Shabbath/Sabbath, meaning to cease, desist, or rest. Here Sabbath refers to God's seventh day of rest in Genesis. The seventh day of the week, of course, when Jews celebrate Sabbath, becomes Saturni dies by the 2nd century in Rome, eventually Saturday in the English. The biblical Hebrew word for seventh, Shebi, and seven, Sheba, are closely related to the number. The sigil of Saturn, from antiquity, over time, morphed into the symbol for the Freemason secret society. The magical axiom of as above, so below is illustrated by the upward and downward facing triangles. There are always two pillars, as in the pillars of Joachim and Boaz, on either side of the two triangles. In some versions, such as this Jesuit ring, the form becomes IXXI, the Roman numerals for 9 and 11. Saturn takes approximately 2 to 2.5 years to transit one sign, and approximately 27 to 29 years to travel through all 12 signs. The 27 Club is a cultural artifact and mythocratic means of sense-making that pertains to a large number of artists and entertainers dying around or shortly after the age of 27. When a person reaches their 28th birthday, the astrological sign that their natal Saturn position held returns to the same sign again. This is called a Saturn return. The concept that only the good die young, and similar understanding, revolves around the notion that before you reach this milestone, your dreams and intentions were more pure. The more pure soul is drawn to things like music or visual art, at first, as a means of escaping this world's parameters. In astrology, Saturn is associated with restriction and limitation. Where Jupiter expands, Saturn constricts. At first blush, the themes of Saturn can seem depressing, but the planet brings structure and meaning to our world. Saturn knows the limits of time and matter. It reminds us of our boundaries, our responsibilities, and our commitments. Essentially, Saturn brings definition to our lives. This planet, through its placement and connections in our charts, makes us aware of the need for self-control, boundaries, and limits. Saturn is often associated with our fathers or father/authority figures. In childhood, the discipline, rules, and regulations imposed on us by our authority figures, from parents, teachers, and the like, were not always pleasant. Similarly, Saturn's lessons help us grow, mature, and refine ourselves. Saturn is historically called the black square or the black cube. It is for this reason that when you learn a discipline in college, you traditionally wear a black mortarboard square on top of your head. This is to illustrate that you have passed through a Saturnian rite. You now know a discipline and are prepared for the adult working world. Saturn's esoteric name throughout history has been El. It's from this root that we get the words elected, elder, elapse, etc. In the so-called Old Testament, El is essentially God. The Bible does not say that man was made in God's image, but rather, in Genesis 1 verse 28, quote, "And Elohim said, Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." The Elohim must then be the emissaries of the planet Saturn. The mystical hexagram, as well as the world religion's reverence for the black cube, all pertain to Saturnine energy and power. The deceit of the material plane is a creation of Saturn, or the demiurge, the great deceiver, also known as Satan, which is developed from Saturn. And dualistically, this is the god for this world, which is the great tragedy. Saturn's name in the Greek religion was Kronos, the father of the gods. From Kronos we get the prefix chrono, which indicates time, as in chronological, etc. When Saturn or Capricorn are featured prominently in the sky, such as in 2008, bad things happen, usually pertaining to money, security, or stability. This is why the financial crisis could be said to have occurred. Some famous people who were born when the sun was in Capricorn are Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, Howard Stern, the most brutal and prolific serial killer Harold Shipman, Edgar Allan Poe, John Carpenter, Poppy, Harmony Korine. This should give you a feel of the Capricorn vibe. Capricorns are rarely religious, more often flagrantly anti-religious, and often like heavy metal, and extreme, macabre, or brutal things. Mayhem is a Norwegian black metal band formed in Langes in 1984. They were one of the founders of the Norwegian black metal scene, and their music has strongly influenced, if not created, the black metal genre. Mayhem's early career was highly controversial, primarily due to their notorious live performances, the 1991 suicide of vocalist Per Yngve Olin, who called himself dead. Dead was a Capricorn. Similarly, the original singer for death metal band Cannibal Corpse, Chris Barnes, is a Capricorn. Lyman Frank Baum was an American author of children's books, best known for writing The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. He and his wife Maud were members of the Theosophical Society, having been admitted to the Rochester Theosophical Society on March 26, 1885, by Josephine Cables. The Wizard of Oz is a deeply theosophic and some say Masonic story. From the Yellow Brick Road to Emerald City, to the falling asleep to the senses in a poppy field, anyone familiar with Masonic thinking will see the many parallels. But what is Oz? English occultist and 33-degree Freemason Aleister Crowley had an idea. In his single-page work, Liber Oz, Crowley poetically entwines the number 7, which correlates with Saturn and the sign of Capricorn, with immutable bylaw of living on Earth. Oz is, for Crowley, a dualistic symbolic sigil, within the O or Omega, associations with Libra, Crowley's own sun sign, and a Capricornus Baphomet inside. The Z is both the right side up and upside down 7, Saturn's number, the number in numerology of discipline, studiousness, and being a student. It's both an illusion and a sigilistic pattern for Crowley, typical of his work. In the sign of Capricorn itself forms loosely a 7, in the stars that make up the constellation, thus the glyph for the sign. Crowley's symbolism 4V for victory, which refers to the story of Isis, Apophis, and Osiris, as it is illustrated in the lesser ritual of the hexagram, first published by Crowley in the Equinox I, number 3, in 1910. In this ritual, the swastika is used to represent the mourning of Isis, and the V is used to symbolize Apophis or Typhon, the destroyer. The peace symbol is not a symbol for anti-war pacifism but rather victory, an assertion of the will. Famously, Crowley accused Winston Churchill of stealing it. Tubal Cain is said to be the first Mason. His symbol is 2 balls and a cane. This is also the origin of 007, being Tubal Cain, Tubal Cain. Not to get your goat about it, but the Wizard of Oz and Crowley's Oz are all derived from, most essentially, Capricorn virtue, the winter, death, no divine law besides nature, paganism, femininity, the Pan ethos. Pan itself, a Capricorn satyr, derived from the same root as Saturn. Capricorn's dry, acerbic style and naturalist connection to the bestial kingdom makes do what thou wilt a natural bedfellow for its energy. The pagan sentiments of abundance from the natural world, but uncompassionate no time for your bullshitness is made manifest in most Capricorn suns and moons. Compassion itself rises from patience, which is a root meaning to suffer like Christ in altruistic spiritualism, more of the domain of Pisces, and Capricorn is not having that, perceiving altruistic kindness as weakness, often. You will see Capricorns be fine with drinking, smoking, copious sex, whatever, but try dating a Capricorn when you don't have a job, and see what I mean. The Queen of Pentacles, Cardinal Earth, Capricorn is Providence. Ruling coldly over her kingdom of materialism, material, mater, mother, matrix, maternity, all the same root, the Queen expects you to work hard, earn, and will turn a blind eye to the shenanigans you get up to on your day off. The important thing is the kingdom you forge, not the means you took to get there. George Bush and other high-ranking Freemasons worship and pay tribute to the 7, Capricorn, Saturn energy, the energy of so-called Satan. It is this energy that Masons use to invoke their will over the material plane.